Good evening, students. So I was discussing monosporic type of development of female gametophyte yesterday. So I have to explain the mechanism how a single functional megaspore develop into a mature female gametophyte or 7-cell 8 nucleated female gametophyte. Very important question I told yesterday, 5 marks. Listen, this is the functional megaspore, chaladal side, micropyle side. You know that there are 4 megaspores which are produced after megasporogenesis. 3 will degenerate, 4th from micropyle. Chaladal megaspore is functional. So these 3 are the degenerating megaspore. This is the functional megaspore. This functional megaspore is involved in the development of mature female gametophyte or embryo sac. This functional megaspore, it is haploid. Remember, nucellus is diploid, megaspore mother cell is diploid, whereas functional megaspore is haploid. So this functional megaspore, it will undergo 3 free nuclear division. Three free nuclear division. That means each nuclear division, this is the nucleus, it possesses dense cytoplasm and a prominent nucleus in this megaspore. So it undergoes 3 free nuclear division, means each nuclear division is not followed by cell wall formation. Each nuclear division is not followed by cell wall formation. Immediately there is no cell wall formation. The number of nuclei will go on increasing. See, first nuclear division, these are all mitotic division only because it is already haploid. And later on it is going to develop into a haploid female gametophyte. First free nuclear division, first what you call the mitotic division, which is free nuclear in nature. It results in the 2 nucleated embryo sac. Second free nuclear division. Second mitotic division. This one will divide and form 2, this one will form 2. See, the nucleus which is there, it has divided after the first mitotic division or first free nuclear division, and it has resulted in the formation of 2 nuclei. These nuclei have moved towards the pole. They have moved towards the pole. From two nucleated embryo sac, now we got four nucleated embryo sac. Four nucleated embryo sac. Now third free nuclear division. These two nuclei divide and form 4. Similarly, these two form 4. Total, we will get 8 nuclei here. Total, we will get 8 nuclei. After the formation of 8 nuclei in this embryo sac now, 3 nuclei will be there towards chaladal side. If this is the chaladal side, 3 nuclei will remain towards the chaladal side. 3 nuclei will remain towards micropylar side. One of the nucleus which is there toward the pole, chaladal pole, move to the center. Similarly, these 3 nuclei will be there toward this pole, and one of the nucleus which is there, it goes towards the center. Now, there is cellularization. There is organization of the cells into mature embryo sac. Till now, it was free nuclear division. As a result, there was no wall formation around each nucleus. Usually, what we can expect if this cell divide, then there is wall formation like this. So, such kind of wall formation not there, right? So, free nuclear division. So, what happened here? Now there is cellularization, organization of the cells into mature embryo sac. So there is cell wall formation around each nucleus, and there will be formation of different cells towards the chalada. Towards the chalada, we will see the formation of antipodals, and towards the micropyle, we will see the formation of egg apparatus. And here in the center, which is there, that can form polar nuclei. And these nuclei have moved from the pole, chaladal pole and micropyle pole toward the center. So these we can refer them as polar nuclei. 2 polar nuclei, all are haploid in nature. Now, cellularization. Due to the cellularization, there is a wall formation around each nucleus, and specific cells are formed at each pole and even in the center. Chaladal pole, this is micropyle pole. This is mature embryo sac, which is formed after cellularization, organization of the cells towards the respective poles, which result in the formation of mature embryo sac will be 7-celled anucleated embryo sac or female gametophyte. Now you see, this is chalagal side. The chalagal side, the 3 nuclei which are formed, they undergo cellularization and organize into antipodals. Antipodals are also called as vegetative cells. Antipodals are also called as vegetative cells. These antipodals absorb the nourishment from the nucellus. The function of the antipodals is absorb nourishment from the nucellus. These antipodals will develop the structures called as haustorium. That haustorium will involve in absorption of the food from the nucellus. So the function of the antipodals or vegetative cells is to absorb the nourishment from the nucellus. They develop the structures called as haustorium, which helps in absorption of the nucellus. See, after fertilization, these antipodals can degenerate or disintegrate. Now, towards the micropyle, this is chalagal side, the basal part, back region of the ovule, basal part of the ovule, this is micropyle. So, in the micropyle, this female gametophyte, what it had egg apparatus. What it has? Egg apparatus. So, this egg apparatus contains single egg, the large, okay, this is large oval shape egg, and side here 2 pear shaped synergids will be there. 2 pear shaped synergids will be present. So this is the egg, that is the female gamete, that is oval, okay, which is haploid in nature, right? On either side there are 2 synergids. So this is the vacuole. This is the nucleus of synergid. This is the nucleus of egg. Nucleus towards facing towards chalada, and the vacuole towards micropyle will be there. Whereas in synergid, vacuole is towards chalada and nucleus towards micropyle will be there. These synergids are also called as helper cells or cooperative cells. Helper cells or cooperative cells. These synergids are also haploid. These synergids are having lateral hooks. They are having in their wall here lateral hooks will be there. Okay. Towards micropyle. Yeah, this is micropylar region. Okay, towards micropyle. Special cellular thickening special cellular thickening or finger-like projections. Finger-like projections. These special cellular thickening present in the synergid towards the micropyle. They are called as filiform apparatus. Filiform apparatus. Synergids can contain X bodies. The synergids can have X bodies also. X bodies are darkly stained DNA containing bodies. Darkly stained DNA containing bodies present in the synergids. The function of the filiform apparatus. Filiform apparatus secretes certain chemotropic substance. Synergids, with the help of filiform apparatus, secrete certain chemotropic substances. Chemotropic substances, chemical substances, which attract the pollen tube. Which attract the pollen tube, which guide the pollen tube entry into the embryo sac. If this is the pollen tube, okay, this pollen tube contain the male gamete, okay. So pollen tube should enter into the embryo sac. So here you have egg, synergid, okay, here polar nuclei, here antipodals, all that. So the pollen tube containing male gamete should enter the embryo sac. So the filiform apparatus guide the pollen tube entry into the embryo sac, into the synergid. So one of the synergid can be invariably destroyed. One of the synergid can be invariably destroyed due to the entry of pollen tube carrying the male gamete. So the filiform apparatus attract the pollen tube. X bodies also can attract the pollen tube containing male gamete towards the embryo sac. So what happens later on? This pollen tube can enter what we call female gametophyte, and then they will discharge. This pollen tube will discharge the male gamete, and these male gametes will take part in fertilization process. The fertilization process which you see in angiosperms in flowering plant, that is double fertilization. We will learn a little later on double fertilization. So that is the role of these synergids or helper cells or cooperative cells, and they also absorb the nourishment from the nucellus. They also absorb the nourishment from the nucellus, and the filiform apparatus of the synergid guide the pollen tube entry into the embryo sac or into the synergid. Right? So this egg, single egg haploid structure, okay, which is oval shape and pear shaped, what we call synergid. The 3 cell structure, one egg, 2 synergid, that make up what we call egg apparatus, and there are 3 antipodals toward the chaladal end in the female gametophyte. So 3 cells here and 3 cells here, total 6 cells. Now listen, in the center of the what we call embryo sac, female gametophyte, there is the largest cell in the female gametophyte. That largest cell is central cell. The largest cell is central cell. This central cell is diploid. Central cell is diploid. That is because just before fertilization, just before fertilization, that is fusion of male gamete with female gamete, just before fertilization, what happens? The two polar nuclei which are there, the two polar nuclei, both are haploid. Both are haploid. These two polar nuclei, they fuse. When they fuse, they produce diploid secondary nucleus. Or it is also called as the definitive nucleus. So here in the center there will be formation of secondary nucleus or definitive nucleus due to the fusion of two polar nuclei forming diploid structure. It is the only diploid structure in haploid female gametophyte. Remaining all antipodals are haploid, egg haploid, synergids haploid. Even polar nuclei are also haploid. Two polar nuclei which are haploid, they fuse and form diploid secondary nucleus or definitive nucleus. So central cell has this what we call the diploid secondary nucleus or definitive nucleus will be there. So you can show, see I have shown separately polar nuclei. You can show secondary nucleus. The secondary nucleus is formed by the fusion of two haploid polar nuclei. So this is the only diploid structure. Secondary nucleus formed due to the fusion of two polar nuclei can form diploid structure, that is secondary nucleus or definitive nucleus, and the cytoplasmic area around that, this entire we call it as central cell. The central cell is the largest cell in the female gametophyte and it is diploid in nature. So three cells here, three cells as antipodals and three cells here towards micropyle, three cells, okay, making the egg apparatus, one egg and two synergid, three cells and one central cell. One is central cell. So 3 plus 3, 6 plus 1. So it is 7 set. It is 7 set. Now, how many nuclei are there? See here. Antipodal, 3 antipodals, each 1 nuclei. So 3 nuclei here. 3 nuclei. In the center, secondary nucleus is formed due to the fusion of two polar nuclei. 2. So in the center we have 2 polar nuclei. 3 plus 2, 5. And here egg apparatus contain 1 egg nucleus and 2 synergid nucleus. So total here also 3 nuclei. So 3 plus 2 plus 3, total 8 nuclei. So this is the mature female gametophyte, okay, or embryo sac, that is 7 cell 8 nucleated embryo sac. So this is how a single functional chaladal megaspore, after undergoing 3 free nuclear division or karyokinetic division, result in the formation of 8 nucleated structure, 8 nucleated embryo sac. Okay, so 1 nucleus will go towards the center from chaladal pole, 1 nucleus go towards the center from micropylar pole. Remaining 3 nuclei will remain towards chaladal end, 3 nuclei towards micropylar end. Now there is a cell wall formation, cytokinesis, cellularization. Each nucleus will have its own cell wall, resulting in the formation of definite cells. So what happens here finally? There will be appearance of the cell wall and these cells like antipodals towards chaladal end 3 and egg apparatus containing 1 egg and 2 synergids towards micropyle and 1 containing 2 polar nuclei. Secondary nucleus will be there in the center. So important question both theory and in theory 5-mark question. Explain the process of more development of what we call this study in Polygonum example. Okay, Polygonum plant by Strasburger. So it is Polygonum type of embryo sac development or development of female gametophyte. Or question, explain the process of development of 7-cell 8-nucleated embryo sac. So this is how in 3 different forms the question can be asked in theory. 5 mark, very very important. Remember this. Synergids are absent in some examples of plants like Plumbago, Plumbagella. Synergid number is 1. In example, Peperomia. Synergid number 1 in example, that is Peperomia. Then you take antipodals. Up to 20 antipodals reported in maize. Highest number in a plant, antipodal number 300. In example, Sasa paniculata, up to 300 antipodal, highest number of antipodals found in a plant, that is Sasa paniculata. Antipodals can be absent in a plant such as Oenothera. Antipodals can be absent in a plant such as Oenothera. Okay, so this is the female gametophyte or embryo sac. So try to remember this, very important. Now moving on to the next concept now. Pollination. In case of flowering plants in angiosperms, male gamete is produced by pollen grain. You know, one pollen grain can produce 2 male gametes. Female gamete is produced egg, ovum, female gamete is produced in embryo sac. So pollen grains are produced in anther, and embryo sac is developed in ovule in the ovary. Male and female gametes both are non-motile. Both are non-motile. They don't move. Unless these two gametes are physically brought together, unless these two gametes, male and female gametes, are brought together, these gametes should be brought together to effect fertilization process. To effect fertilization process, to achieve fertilization process. So how the plants can achieve this fertilization? Plants can achieve this fertilization by means, by a process. That process is called as pollination. The process is called as pollination. So due to this pollination only, the male and female gametes can be brought near together. Then only that can lead to fertilization. Otherwise there will not be fertilization. So pollination, pollen, pollination term derived from Latin pollen, okay, fine flower. It is fine flower. What is this pollination? Listen, this is stamen, this is stigma. Anther will be there in the stem. This anther is present in the stamen, which produce pollen grains, which produce the pollen grains. The transfer of pollen grains, the transfer of pollen grains from anther, this is the anther, okay, the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma. Landing platform for pollen grain is stigma. We have learnt already structure. So the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of a flower is known as pollination. The transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of a flower is known as pollination. So these flowering plants are angiosperms. They have undergone various adaptations. They have underwent various adaptations to achieve desired kind of pollination, desired type of pollination. So this pollination can lead to the landing of pollen grain onto the stigma. Then pollen grain will germinate, pollen tube will be produced, that pollen tube carry the male gamete. Then in the ovary there is what I call ovule. Ovule contain female gametophyte containing egg or ovum. So then it can affect into what I call a fertilization process, all that. So this is simple definition of the pollination. Now, based on the source of pollen, based on the source of pollination is of different types. So mainly we will group into self-pollination, autogamy. Self-pollination is called as autogamy. Then another one, cross-pollination, that is called as allogamy. That is called as allogamy. Now, first, self-pollination. What is self-pollination? See here, the transfer of pollen grain. The transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of the same flower. When the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of the same flower, then it is called as self-pollination, or it is called as autogamy. Remember, autos means self, gamos means marriage. So transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of the same flower is known as self-pollination. Then what is this cross-pollination? True cross-pollination. True cross-pollination. The transfer of pollen grains. The transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of another flower on another plant, on different plant. So the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of another flower on another plant, different plant, but of the same species, different plant of the same species, that remember. So that we call it as cross pollination, or it is called as allogamy. So these are the two main types of pollination. So first we will complete this self pollination or autogamy, then we will move on to the cross pollination, all that. See, as per NCERT, first they have given autogamy based on the source of the pollen. I told pollination is of mainly two types, self pollination and cross pollination. In NCERT book, what they have given? First they have given autogamy, then second one they have given geitonogamy. We will come to know what do you mean by that. And third one they have given xenogamy. Okay, so this xenogamy is coming truly under this allogamy or cross pollination. Geitonogamy is a kind of what we call self pollination only. It is not a true cross pollination. It is not a true cross pollination. True cross pollination is xenogamy. Geitonogamy is a kind of self pollination only. It is not a true cross pollination. Okay, we will learn to know later on. So first we will have self pollination. So transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of the same flower is known as self pollination. So what kind of conditions or adaptations or contrivances should be there in the flower to achieve the self pollination? What are the conditions or contrivances for self pollination or autogamy? Self pollination, autogamy, both one and same. So these are the conditions or contrivances which should be there in the flower to achieve self-pollination. So first one, bisexuality. Suppose if self-pollination has to take place in a flower, the flower should be bisexual. Means it should have both and which produce pollen grain. It should have ovary, okay, which produce egg in the ovary, female gametophyte. That means it should have both and carpel. Both male reproductive structure, female reproductive structure, both should be present in the flower. That is called as bisexual flower. So you are saying, yeah, it is a bisexual flower. It had this gynoecium or pistil containing ovary, style and stigma, and it has stamen containing anther. Okay, so when the flower is bisexual, so see, in a plant when the flowers are bloomed, okay, and when they are well exposed, so these flowers should be bisexual to increase the chance of self-pollination. Suppose if the flowers are unisexual, no chance of self-pollination. There is every possibility of what you call cross-pollination. So presence of the stamen and the carpel in a single flower can favor self-pollination. So example for bisexuality. Catranthus roseus, that is Vinca rosea. Sada Mallige, Sada Bahar, what we call Vinca rosea. Second condition, that is homogamy. Homogamy. What is the meaning of homogamy? Listen. This is anther, this is stigma. Maturation of anther and stigma at the same time. This anther and the stigma should mature at the same time. That is, what is the meaning of this? Synchronization of anther release, anther dehiscence, anther on maturity dehisce and it release pollen grain. Synchronization of anther dehiscence to release pollen grain and stigma receptivity. Stigma should be ready to receive the pollen grain. So there should be matching of time between the pollen grain release and stigma receptivity. And stigma receptivity. So when anther dehisces to release the pollen grain and stigma ready to receive the pollen grain, this time match, synchronize, then that is homogamy. So maturation of the anther and stigma in a bisexual flower. This is a bisexual flower. This is a bisexual flower. Maturation of the anther and stigma in a bisexual flower at the same time, or there is synchronization of the anther dehiscence to release the pollen grain and receptivity of the stigma for pollen grain should match in a bisexual flower. Then there is self-pollination. So this is homogamy. Homogamy example, Mirabilis. Homogamy example, Mirabilis. The next, Clistogamous flowers. Listen. Usually in flowering plants, the normal flowers which are produced in the aerial parts of the plant, these flowers are chasmogamous flowers. The flowers which remain open, well exposed to the surrounding environment, to the air, light. So the flowers which remain open, they are called as chasmogamous flowers. So flowering plants, okay, in their aerial parts, they are going to produce these chasmogamous flowers. Abundantly, they produce these chasmogamous flowers. There are some plants, they produce clistogamous flowers also. So clistogamous flowers means these flowers do not open, they remain always closed. They do not open. The flowers which do not open, they remain closed. Such kind of flowers are called as clistogamous flowers. See, when the flower is closed, within the bisexual flower, remember, the plants, the flowers which are self-pollinating. So within this bisexual flower, the distance between the anther and stigma very less. The distance between the anther and stigma is very less within the bisexual flower. When the anther mature, when it dehisces by a force, automatically the pollen grains can be released. They are bursted, and these pollen grains can reach the what we call stigma, that affect into self-pollination. So usually not dependent on external pollinating agent. And the distance between the anther and stigma is very close to each other. When anther mature, it dehisces. That dehiscence force, which is responsible for the bursting open of the pollen grains, can reach out of few pollen grain, at least single pollen grain can reach the stigma, resulting into pollination. So here in some of the plants, they produce clistogamous flower in addition to chasmogamous flower. I told chasmogamous flowers are open flowers. Okay, they bloom, they open, they remain on the aerial parts of the plant. In addition to these chasmogamous flower, near to the ground surface, okay, they produce these clistogamous flower, the flowers which remain closed, they do not open. The pollination which occur in closed flower, is known as clistogamy. It is called a clistogamy. If anther and stigma mature at different time, pollen grain release one time, stigma receptivity another time, means there will not be self-pollination. That is leading to cross-pollination. That we will learn later on. These are some of the examples. Viola, which is also called as a common pansy, then Oxalis commelina. In addition to these, groundnut, balsam. These are all some other examples. See, when you take this Commelina bengalensis, okay. This is closed flower, which is near to the ground surface or underground, whatever it is. They are dull, not brightly colored. So this is clistogamous flower. Whereas in the aerial part, it is going to produce what we call the normal flower, which is open flower. Normal flowers are open flower. They are chasmogamous flower. They are chasmogamous flower. Okay, these are bisexual flower only. So this flower which remain closed, that is a clistogamous flower. So in the clistogamous flower, as the flower remain closed, as the flower remains closed, no chance of cross pollen coming and falling on the stigma of that. Suppose if this flower, now it is open flower, when the flower remain closed, okay, it is closed, right, then other pollen grain will not land on the stigma of that flower. Will not land on the stigma of that flower. So there is no chance of other pollen grain falling on the stigma of the flower in clistogamous flower. In the clistogamous flower, as the flower remain closed, no chance of cross pollination. Only invariably they are autogamous. Invariably they are autogamous. They are self-pollinated. Okay. So what happens in a closed flower? So if this is the closed flower like this. Okay, so here inside that closed flower, anther and stigma, they remain very close to each other. When they remain very close to each other, what happens? Dehiscence of the anther, that bursting force, release these pollen grains in more number, then the pollen grain can reach the stigma within that closed flower. So that is how it affects into self-pollination. It affects into self-pollination. See, in this clistogamous flower which remain closed, so there, what is the benefit or advantage? Assured seed setting is there. Assured seed setting means guarantee there is seed formation. Why there is assured seed setting? Because as the flower remain closed, anther and stigma are very close to each other. Okay, they can mature at the same time. That result in pollination, that is self-pollination. So pollination can lead to fertilization. After fertilization, there will be seed formation. Okay, assured seed setting, even in the absence of external pollinators. Even though external pollinating agent absent, it can be wind, it can be water, it can be animals, whatever it is. No requirement of external pollinating agent. Without external pollinating agent, okay, pollination occur in the closed flower, which can lead to definite formation of the seeds. So clistogamy means pollination of flower, that is closed flower. Pollination of in closed flower is known as clistogamy. So in clistogamy, assured seed setting is there even in the absence of external pollinators. So this is what we call clistogamy or clistogamous flowers. This is another contrivance or condition required for what we call self-pollination. Clistogamous flower, or you can write clistogamy, whatever. Then another one I wrote bud pollination. Bud pollination. So here the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma in the bud. In the bud, mogo. Bud is mogo. The flower is not completely developed and flower is not open. Okay, it is in still bud condition. So what happens? There can be transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma in a flower when it is in bud condition only. In bud condition, that we call it as bud pollination. Example, wheat, rice, in them you can see bud pollination. So these are the conditions or contrivance for self-pollination. So transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of the same flower is known as self-pollination or autogamy. So now what are the advantages and disadvantages of this autogamy? So advantages of autogamy or self-pollination. It is a sure and economical process. In self-pollination, the distance travelled by the pollen grain to reach the stigma is very, very short. The bursting force, the dehiscence force of the anther itself can release the pollen grain, which can easily fall on the stigma. So it is a sure and economical process. It is an economical process. It is not dependent on, this self-pollination is usually not dependent on external pollinating agent. It is usually not dependent on external pollinating agent. Usually not dependent on external pollinating agent. So here the plant need not produce large number of pollen grains. Plants need not produce large number of pollen grains. Plant need not produce large number of pollen grains. Unnecessary wastage of pollen grain not there in this self-pollination. That's why it is economical process. The flowers need not be brightly colored here. In self-pollination, flowers need not be showy. Showy means that is brightly colored, okay, or attractive. Okay, no need to produce scent or what you call aroma, scent or aroma, nectar, sweet sugary fluid, sweet sugary syrup, no need to produce. Self-pollination, it produces homozygous offsprings. It produces homozygous offspring, genetically pure offsprings. It helps in maintaining parental characters. It helps in maintaining parental characters. It helps in maintaining parental characters. It helps to maintain pure lines, genetic pure lines. It helps to maintain pure lines. That is homozygous offspring, I don't know. It helps to maintain pure lines. So these are some of the advantages or benefits of what we call self-pollination, right? So I will stop here. I will continue in the next class.